Elvis Presley was among the most well-known musicians in 1969. He is still regarded as the king of rock and roll and a great pioneer in the development of music today. Everyone Presley interacted with seemed to be profoundly affected by him, and Whitney Houston was no different. If you're curious about what Whitney Houston had to say about her encounter with Elvis Presley, watch this video. The Bodyguard continues to hold the title for the most selling movie soundtrack of all time. And it's understandable why, given that the romantic film starring Whitney Houston, as well as Kevin Costner, gave rise to classic songs like I Will Always Love You, Run to You, and Queen of the Night. I Have Nothing is unquestionably one of Whitney Houston's most classic ballads and one of the most well-known tracks. However, an unusual source, the king himself, Elvis Presley, inspired the song itself. Take my love, I'll never ask for too much. Just all that you are and everything that you do were the introductory words, which were penned from a very intimate experience of loving and living with Elvis by its song lyrics author, Linda Thompson. Thompson, a former beauty pageant champion turned renowned songwriter, dated Presley for more than 4 years, starting between July 1972 and late 1976. In a recent interview, she explained the song's origins, stating, "That song was definitely inspired by my living with Elvis. I knew what it was like to live with the biggest male diva of all time. I had to write this lyric around Whitney Houston, who was the female diva in The Bodyguard. So I took some of the happenings and some of my feelings about having lived with Elvis and wrote about it in The Bodyguard." She made comparisons between the movie's pop star lead Rachel Marin, played by Whitney, and Elvis. She further stated, like the lyrics, "Stay in my arms if you dare, or must I imagine you there?" Because it was a challenge to be with someone who was that larger than life, someone who was such a huge rock star. Thompson realized Elvis wouldn't ever settle down into the wedded life she yearned for. Thus the song is laden with regret because it was inspired by her enduring love even after their split. Alongside David Foster, she also pursued her own goal of being a singer-songwriter, which was realized later in life. Although it didn't turn out that way, Whitney's stunning vocal performance is what helped I Have Nothing become a huge smash. And Thompson remembered what transpired while seeing Whitney perform it live in the studio. She was a racehorse, stepped up to the microphone without any warm-ups, and just hit those big notes. The singer of I Have Nothing, Whitney Houston also has a great encounter and experience with Elvis Presley, and she talked about this in an Access Hollywood interview. When her mom, Cissy Houston, and the band Sweet Inspirations performed for Presley, she was just 6 years old. Houston was awestruck to see Elvis as she arrived backstage with her mother. She stated, "You actually don't meet Elvis, you just look at Elvis." Houston claimed she was captivated at an early age and would not forget that experience. Since her mom sang backup for Presley for a long time, her mom and Presley were quite close. In Las Vegas, it was July 1969. Elvis had not given a live performance in a while, and because Cissy Houston, Whitney's mom, would quit Sweet Inspirations in early October 1969 to seek a solo career and devote more to her children, it was during that summer of 1969 that the two pop idols first crossed paths. From 1969 until his passing in 1977, Elvis performed with the Sweet Inspirations. Cissy Houston was indeed the aunt of singer Dionne Warwick in addition to being the mom of Whitney Houston. Cissy Houston remembered, "He was such a gentleman. It was really wonderful. He was into gospel, so every once in a while, we'd finish rehearsing with him, and we just sang gospel, all of us, and we just had a good time." She noted that because he was so attractive and treated everyone equally, everyone was drawn to him. Whitney Houston recalls Elvis' introduction to her with great clarity. The singers, her mother, and the others involved in the whole backstage kind of thing gathered. Presley entered the room wearing cosmetics and glasses. She smiled and said, "You don't say anything. You just look." It was just one of those moments I won't forget as a kid. It wasn't like, "Hi, Mr. Elvis. Nice to meet you." You didn't do that. You just sat back and just, she added, just look at him. He was amazing to look at. Just amazing. Just to be in his presence was awesome. My mother sang with Elvis for years. She and her group were called the Sweet Inspirations. They also sang for Aretha Franklin for many, many years. In most of the 60s, they were on all Aretha songs. Elvis took a liking to them, and my mum sang with him for many years. They were very close. The Naomi Ackie-led Whitney biopic, I Wanna Dance with Somebody, serves as a timely reminder that Whitney was not only one of the greatest pop stars of all time, but also among the best vocalists in history. Yet when she encountered the king, even she was rendered speechless. Whitney recalls being incredibly pleased with what Sissy was about to accomplish with Elvis right before that amazing meeting, even though her celebrity and financial success would far surpass that of her mother. She stated, "I just remember at one point being in a room. We were all in this room, my mother, the singers, and the usual backstage thing. He just walked into the room with his mink on, with his glasses on." After an absence of some years, Elvis performed once more on July 31, 1969, at the International Hotel in Las Vegas. He wanted Sissy to be there with him because the concert would usher in an exciting new period in his professional life. In 1992, Whitney recounted the time Elvis requested her mother to perform with him when she was advertising The Bodyguard. She recalled, "I don't remember how old I was, but I remember my mother received a phone call saying he wanted the Sweets to come back for his 1969 comeback shows in Vegas. I remember my mother being very enthusiastic to do with it, but very concerned that she would have to leave her children for a month." Sissy stated that to support Whitney and her elder brother Michael, Mummy and Daddy had to go. At the time, their mother's manager was their father, John Huston. Whitney continued, "I remember she really didn't want to leave us, but she had to go. I remember all the hoopla about Elvis in Vegas, and I remember that I was very proud that my mother was there with him because it was a very big event." Sissy stated, "We went to work for Elvis. It was wonderful. He was wonderful. I loved him. He was such a gentleman." And she added, "When we got there, it was nothing like we might have thought. It was just wonderful, really wonderful. He was really into gospel, so every once in a while after rehearsal, we'd just sing gospel and we had a good time. Good money and a nice atmosphere." She further stated, "Elvis loved gospel music. He was raised on it, and he really did know what he was talking about. He was singing gospel all the time. Almost anything he did had that flavor. You can't get away from what your roots are." And Sissy stated, "He was a wonderful person, so good-looking, so handsome, but he was fun. He cracked jokes. When you were singing, he'd make you laugh." Elvis performed 57 shows during his initial run in Las Vegas, and for the remainder of his life, he would tour the country as well as make regular trips back to the city. However, Sissy would go from the Sweet Temptations alongside Elvis for a reason that was much more crucial. "My children were getting bigger, and I felt they really needed me home." Following the successful release of her music, Sissy started a solo career and continued to play as a session musician for other singers. What a wonderful experience this was indeed for Whitney Houston to meet the king. Do you think Whitney's encounter with the king had a big impact on her? Comment your answers in the comments section. Thanks for watching this video. Please give us a like if you had fun watching. And don't forget to give this a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Hit that notification bell, and we'll see you in our next video.